Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're listening to me from. This is the Football Talk with Omisi Daniel Chukwemeka. I just made that name up. In case the word football talk doesn't work, or if sports talk doesn't work, I'd probably change it going forward. Again, welcome to my podcast where I talk about everything that concerns me, from sports to politics and to lifestyle and self-improvement. I've got a number of things on my table, a number of topics I want to run through for you and run through with you. So I hope that you find my conversation with you today as interesting as I find my talking to you equally interesting. The first thing, of course, on my table has to be the Champions League draw. Yesterday in Switzerland, there was a round quarterfinals of the Champions League draw held in Switzerland, and of course, as is expected, it came with a lot of razzmatazz, a lot of excitement, and a lot of interesting matchup for you. If you're a fan of football, you obviously know the quarterfinals is where they say the boys have been separated from the men. Right now, we have 8 teams in the Champions League quarterfinals. As expected, we have 3 teams from Spain in Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, and Barcelona, 2 teams from England in Arsenal, and from Manchester City, we have 2 from Germany in Borussia Dortmund and Bayern Munich, and 1 from France in PSG. Now, a lot of things have occurred, a lot of conversations have ensued with regard to the Champions League round of 8. Like I asked today on the show, on the sports show I do with the city of Jos, does it mean that when a country has more teams in the next phase of the Champions League, is it an indication of the success of the league? I think the answer to that, if I'm going to be honest with you, is that it is relative. You do not always have the best teams, quote unquote, qualify for the next phases, and the representation, especially when it is for just one season of a country, as the clubs in the country in the Champions League knockout phases, are not proper indications of their success. But again, all of this would have to be contextualized into a longer time frame. But also, you also have to look at the things surrounding their qualification. So, for example, the Italian teams in Napoli and in Inter Milan that went through to the round of 16, if they had gotten different draws, especially for Inter, who narrowly missed out on penalties, so Borussia Dortmund would have gone for the quarterfinals. A number of things had gone right. Of course, you know that all of these are mere conjectures, but these conjectures are also very important when having discussion on what team or what country's league is the best in the world, or whether or not Champions League knockout phases representation is a yardstick to judge them. But all of that do not concern us because we have the 8 teams already in the next phase of the Champions League. Like I mentioned before, it is Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Atletico Madrid from Spain, Manchester City and Arsenal from England, Borussia Dortmund and Bayern Munich from Germany, and PSG from France. Now, the matchups yesterday were interesting. They're interesting because there seemed to be a perennial rivalry between certain clubs and new rivalries that might be forged in the future with certain clubs. For the big one, some would say it is Manchester City versus Real Madrid. This is an epic tie that has given us, in the past 3 to 4 years, excitement all through. Remember what happened last season, what happened 2 seasons before, and even during the COVID season when Zinedine Zidane was the coach of Real Madrid. Another fixture we saw yesterday from Switzerland is Barcelona versus PSG. If you remember the infamous Lionel Messi, Neymar, and Sergio Roberto miracle that happened at the Camp Nou after they had lost the first leg to an Edison Cavani inspired PSG some years ago, you understand how dynamic, how historic rather, this matchup between PSG and Barcelona is. Also, if you know that PSG and Barcelona have coaches that were former players of La Masia, former Barcelona greats as they call them. So it's going to be an interesting tie, and the relationship between PSG and Barcelona in the last few years have been both interesting and sour. The other fixture also is Atletico Madrid versus Borussia Dortmund. What some might say might not be the most watery of fixtures in the quarterfinal stages might turn out to give us all the excitement we need. And the last fixture is Arsenal versus Bayern Munich. I'm not going to be trolling Arsenal today for Arsenal fans. I'll do my best to be neutral. I usually am neutral, of course, except I'm joking. So I'm going to give you my predictions and why I think these teams will qualify for the next phases of the Champions League, which is the semi-finals. I might not be wrong, my predictions might not come through all the time, but I'm going to give you some things and show them up with some stats to give you an idea, a fair idea of what I think would happen when the Champions League quarterfinals takes center stage. On with the big one. I call this one the big one for obvious reasons. First, it is because the two teams in Real Madrid and Manchester City are the two favorites to win the Champions League this season. I can't remember the exact odds I saw on ESPN, but I know City and Madrid are probably closely first and second in the possibility or probability of winning the Champions League this season. So it shows you how competitive both teams are. Both teams in Madrid and City were in the semi-finals last season, played against each other. They've also engaged in the last two semi-finals previous to this one, where Madrid won the first one, that was 2 years ago, and City won the last one, where they went on to win the Champions League. That's 2022-2023 season. So it's a very interesting matchup between both teams. Now, I would want to bore you somewhat with some stats and how many victories and losses. While all of that will be interesting for you to know, I think as best I start off with what makes this matchup a blockbuster on every sense. The first thing you need to take note of is that both teams have two of the best managers, or I think two of the best four managers in the world right now, considering there's a Jurgen Klopp somewhere and there's a certain Simone Inzaghi. You might hate me for calling Inzaghi's name, but maybe on another podcast I will explain to you why I think Simone Inzaghi is one of the best managers in the world of football. Anyways, like I was saying, two managers in Pep Guardiola and Carlo Ancelotti makes for a thirsty tie. Now the reason why this is because both managers have had histories in the past with Barcelona as well as with Real Madrid, and even when Carlo Ancelotti was coach of AC Milan at a point when also coach of Bayern Munich. But the most interesting tie between Don Carlo Ancelotti and Pep Guardiola happened last season. Now, it was not the first time it happened. We saw what happened seasons ago, where Real Madrid, from the dying embers of that game, through Karim Benzema, went on to snatch the victory over there at the Etihad in the Champions semi-final, and they went on to win that one. However, what makes this also very interesting is that these two managers are two of the most tactically astute managers you can find in the world of football. Now, I had to come down to you so I can look at you very clearly, because this is very important. Don Carlo Ancelotti has been in this game for more than 2 or 3 decades, while for Pep Guardiola, he has been at the top for more than a decade since being the coach of Barcelona in 2008-2009 season. But from then till now, both managers have toured around, even coaching the same club at a certain time, that is Pep Guardiola and Don Carlo Ancelotti. However, the difference between both managers is that while Don Carlo Ancelotti has been known for his absolute pragmatism when it comes to playing football and utilizing the players he has to the best of their abilities, or to the best of the abilities he wants them to play at, Pep Guardiola is one person who is known to always impose his style on his players and get the kind of players he thinks can play his style. While one manager, some would say, is very good at managing whatever resources he has to his own, to their best of abilities, and to get the result he demands of them. The other is known to getting what he wants when he wants them. But thanks to his success so far as a manager, Pep Guardiola can ask those questions and can demand for those things. For Don Carlo Ancelotti, his playing style is reminiscent of what I like to call the result is most important. We can't say, for example, that Don Carlo Ancelotti has a specific standard style. Some days he's playing pressing football and passing from the back. Some other days he's going past the midfield and doing long balls and working on the counter. It is all about switching things up for Don Carlo Ancelotti. And I think his astuteness, the wisdom he has garnered over the years as a manager, going from AC Milan to Everton, to Bayern Munich, to PSG, and now at Real Madrid, which he was there before, makes Don Carlo Ancelotti one of the most corny, not in terms of the negative aspect of it, one of the trickiest managers to go up against, because you cannot predict what his tactics will be. And for Pep Guardiola, he has not had the best of season so far. Even though he's third on the table in the EPL, even though he's in the quarterfinals of the Champions League and quarterfinals of the FA Cup in England, we can't say the City team is playing in the same way they were playing last season. For example, City has not beaten a big six team in the EPL this season, whether Arsenal or Liverpool or Chelsea, although Chelsea are not the top 6 team. They've beaten Arsenal, they've not beaten Liverpool, they've not beaten Chelsea, they've not also beaten Tottenham. So again, you look at how City have been playing this season, and you kind of sort of have your worries as to whether or not they are at the same level they were when they won the treble last season. So, for Pep Guardiola and his City side, it's been a season of a lot of questions, a lot of injuries to Erling Haaland, Kevin De Bruyne, Rodri at some point. We also saw players like Doku get injured, Jack Grealish. I don't know when he'll be back this season. So it's been one of those unstable seasons for City where injuries and players not playing up to their level has sort of affected them. But because Pep Guardiola is Pep Guardiola, and because Manchester City are Manchester City, they have found a way to navigate through all the hurdles, and here they are in the quarterfinals. Now, the other thing that makes this a very tasty tie is that Real Madrid now have the complement of Jude Bellingham, who some people would call the junior Zinedine Zidane. And even though I had criticized the award or the praise is given to Jude Bellingham earlier in the season, I think he's going to be a way better version than Zinedine Zidane. Now, you might hate me for it if you are one person who is hell-bent on being nostalgic about Zizou. I love him. I think he's one of the best midfielders in the world. He taught me the touristy of dribble. Shout out to him. I used to be so when I was younger. But I think that Jude Bellingham's ceiling most likely will be higher than Zizou because he possesses all the qualities of an amazing midfielder, from marking to passing to goals to shooting. I think Jude Bellingham right now is the most complete midfielder in the world. You probably would not like it, and so let me just give you some of the reasons why I say he's the best midfielder, or that he's the most complete midfielder in the world right now. First, Jude Bellingham can operate as a central midfielder doing the dirty job of tackling. I saw him in early matches with Real Madrid this season, where he was literally hustling from defense to midfield to attack, doing almost everything that a midfielder should do. He knows how to pass. Now, his passing range might not be as astronomically outwardly as Kevin De Bruyne or Lionel Messi, but he's not the poorest passer of the ball. Short passes or long passes, Jude Bellingham does have his eyes on them. And if he's getting 2021, you imagine how good he will get when he gets 25, 26, or even 30. So again, I think he has a higher ceiling than Zizou, and boy, can he score goals. He has a thunder of a shot when he needs to. He has great techniques under his boots, and I think Jude Bellingham is I won't say the greatest midfielder, so I don't contradict myself, but I think he's one of the most complete midfielders, if not the only complete midfielder there is right now in the world. Maybe you put in a Rodri there too, who has been doing fantastically well, on the word of Gibson, for Manchester City this season. But hey, like I was saying before, Real Madrid now has the complement of Jude Bellingham, so it means that Real Madrid, even though last season did not have Karim Benzema, still caused a lot of problems. Now they have a Jude Bellingham that can get you the goals, that can get you the tackles, that can get you the assists, and can influence the game from any part of the pitch. Now they also have the compliments of Brahim Diaz, which they did not have last season. Now, if you are not a La Liga fan or a Real Madrid fan, you probably would not understand why Brahim Diaz has to come into this conversation. Now, I'll explain to you why. Last season, when Real Madrid took on Manchester City and they got beaten at the Etihad Stadium, one of the biggest problems they had was that when Vinicius Jr. was marked out of the game, Rodrigo was awfully useless because his speed is one of his greatest strengths, but hey, he couldn't outpace the City players because they always had the ball in their legs. However, with Brahim Diaz, he offers a different kind of dynamics to how Madrid plays. First, he's a highly intelligent ball-playing midfielder. Just so you know, Brahim Diaz came from the academy of Manchester City, went on to Real Madrid and went on loan to AC Milan before returning to Madrid this season. But all of that is to say that Brahim Diaz is very technically gifted, that even if he doesn't beat players for pace, his intelligence with the ball and off the ball will be very important in how Madrid will play against City. Also, you also need to consider that right now Madrid seems to be a lot more mature team. Now they haven't added a lot of players, only Brahim Diaz who came on loan from AC Milan and Jude Bellingham. But this team now has the complement and a full, very healthy Nicolas Mendy, the left back, the French left back for them. They also have the complement of Oro Tchouameni and Eduardo Camavinga, as well as Federico Valverde. Off the bench, they have the one and only, the ageless Luka Modric, who can come off the bench and cause magic for them. Last season against Manchester City, one of the things they suffered was that they did not have the complement of players that could create for them as much as Modric could. Modric was run out of the park, I expectedly, by the Manchester City midfield. But you look at the way this Madrid midfield is constructed right now, like I mentioned before, with Ibrahim Diaz either playing as a winger or as a false nine or as a holding midfielder alongside Jude Bellingham, it gives you a different kind of way to play. So Madrid seem to be a better team than they were last season. They are scoring goals now with Jude Bellingham in the side, Joselu on the bench, but this Madrid side seem a lot younger than they were last season, seem a lot more explosive on the counter like they've always been. But I think for Manchester City, this side is forced up for them to lose. Right now for City, the good thing is that Kevin De Bruyne is back. But like I mentioned before, City this season hasn't given you that feeling that they can beat almost anybody in the world. Now they can beat any team in the world. Madrid, Liverpool, Arsenal, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, they have the ability to. But this season, Man City sort of gives you that I'm not certain yet. They've not hit their gear yet. You think they're hitting their gear, and then you see them against a top side, and they sort of scuttle and struggle against big teams. Case in point has to be that match against Liverpool, where Manchester City, for the first time in a long time, were played off in the middle of the park. Szoboszlai, Endo, and McAllister seem to be like a rash all over City's midfield, making them seem utterly confused on what to do and how to use the ball. Now that is an anomaly for a City side that is very good with holding the ball and dictating possession. Now, so the hard work of the Liverpool midfield obviously is way above what you have in Real Madrid. Tchouameni is an amazing midfielder, Camavinga is an amazing midfielder, but the level of hard work that Liverpool and Klopp's team play cannot be compared to any other. So we cannot necessarily use Liverpool's game as a total yardstick to judge how that midfield in Man City would hold up against Real Madrid. But the one thing you should be certain is that midfield is not as compact as it used to be. John Stones is coming back to his own. Rodri has always been Rodri. Kevin De Bruyne, yes, he's back in form and back in the team, but know that he has not hit the height we know he can hit yet. And Erling Braut Haaland isn't there yet. When will he get there? We do not know. Injuries have blighted his progress so far this season, so I won't hold that or put a lot of stakes on him. But we cannot say that Haaland is at his optimal best so far this season. The other big minus for Manchester City, and I think it's something that people do not talk about often because somehow we love to hate on this player. His name is Jack Grealish. The absence of Jack Grealish this season has been telling, very telling for Man City. Now you probably say, hey, he doesn't score a lot of goals. Hey, he doesn't give a lot of assists. But there's something Jack Grealish does that Jeremy Doku can never, maybe not necessarily not never, but cannot do right now. That is the ability to properly read the game and be a danger with or without the ball. Jack Grealish as a player is good with the passing, good with the dribbles, and is quite pacey. Now he might have fallen off in terms of his form this season, but Jack Grealish's success last season was very instrumental to Manchester City's success last season. Now he has been injured. It means that the left wing position has been a bit shaky. Some days Doku is good, some days he isn't. Some days Julian Alvarez is good, some days he isn't. Now, with the way Phil Foden is playing, you can't necessarily put him there because he seems a lot comfortable playing in the middle or from the right. Now, those are the negatives for Manchester City. The big positive for City is that Phil Foden is now a man. Now, if you have followed Phil Foden's career as a City boy from 5 years ago, you always knew he was a bundle of talent. Probably one of the best youngsters, according to Pep Guardiola, that Pep has coached ever in his life. Even though I think Pep says that about everybody, he also mentioned of Harry Kulu is one of the best youngsters he has coached before, so you can't take that seriously. But Guardiola and the world is beginning to come to notice the maturity of Phil Foden. Now, why is this important? It is important because whenever a team would go on to do magic or to be successful in Europe, you would need that one player that can take the bull by the horn when the system doesn't work. I give a typical example of this 2 seasons ago when Real Madrid took on Manchester City and Man City got beaten up to the semi-finals by some Benzema's magic in the 9 minutes of that game. Man City controlled every aspect of that game in the second leg of the semi-finals, even in the first leg, right? But they did not have the player that took the bull by the horn and said, you know what, damn it, or rather, fuck it, I'll go out there and do what's necessary. Madrid had it in Vinicius Junior and Karim Benzema, and they went on to win that game because they had the players who, although the system wasn't working for them as they expected it to, were bold enough to just go at it and do what they needed to do. For Manchester City, last season, we saw it happen with Jack Grealish as well as Rodri. Both players were very instrumental, not just in the goals they scored, but in how they were able to dictate how games would end because of the sheer brilliance of their skills. We also saw it with Bernardo Silva too in the semi-finals against Real Madrid. Now, if you want to succeed in Europe, you would have to have that one player that has the X factor when your team needs it. And I think Phil Foden is that man for City this season. Now, what makes Phil Foden a very instrumental X factor is that he can shoot, he can dribble, he can pass, and he can defend. I know I mentioned Jude Bellingham being one of the best midfielders in the world, but Phil Foden gives you that. I might be wrong here, so please correct me if I'm wrong, dear listener or dear viewer. Phil Foden gives you a little bit of Xavi, a little bit of Iniesta, and a little bit of Ryan Giggs. His ability to hold the ball on his left leg and cause damage from the wings is something that is beautiful to watch. So yes, City has an X factor in Phil Foden. They also have an X factor not in Haaland, not in Doku, but in Rodri. Yes, the former Atletico Madrid boy, the one who said in an interview that he was so thin one time that he was not picked for, in a team, has been super influential. He was last season, but I think his status as a midfielder in City has even grown more this season. Why? You look at the matches that Rodri missed due to either bookings or injuries, and look at how City struggled in those matches. Now, Rodri might not give you the Kevin De Bruyne's 70-yard pass. He might not give you the Phil Foden, Bernardo Silva, dribble 5 players and get a goal. But his reading of the game is at the same level of what prime Sergio Busquets used to do. Now, you probably go like, oh, dude, you're pushing it too far. But if you take your time to watch Rodri closely, you will know that this is a man that knows how to play football and is highly intelligent enough to determine how a game goes or doesn't go with his passes and his positioning. He seems a lot faster now, he seems a lot stronger now, he seems a lot intelligent than he was even last season. So these are the two factors for me I think will determine where this is swing for City. Now, if I'm going to call this one, I might be biased here, so again, you have to forgive me for this one. I think City slightly edges this one for 2 reasons. First, they have a striker. Madrid has no striker. UCL is not a striker. I'm sorry, man, but UCL is not the guy you want to win the Champions League with. And they also have the full complement of their squad, barring Jack Grealish's absence. It means that Man City can switch things up when they need to. If they want to switch things up by not playing through the midfield and playing from the back and doing that 3-5-2 formation, they can't do that. Haaland is fast, Alvarez is fast, Doku is fast, Foden is fast. If they want to play from the middle of the pack and pass you out of your senses, they have the players to do that. They have Bernardo Silva, Rodri, Kevin De Bruyne, Kovacic, if some of us forget, as well as Matheus Nunes. If they need somebody to make magic happen for them, they have Kevin De Bruyne with his passes, Bernardo Silva with his dribbles and runs, as well as Phil Foden with his dribbles, goals and runs. So again, they have all of these factors. The downside for Real Madrid is that they do not have the striker. And if Jude Bellingham for any reason doesn't play, that is a lot of problem. Now, you probably will not understand how important Jude Bellingham is for Real Madrid until you watch their matches in La Liga without Jude Bellingham. Now, they do create a lot of chances, no doubt. I think the match against Sevilla, they had like 4 or 5 chances in the first half and could not convert them. But what Jude Bellingham brings to the Madrid side is something no other person can. Brahim Diaz on some days can try, but he doesn't give you that. Costello on some days can try, but he doesn't give you that. Rodrigo on some days can try, but he doesn't give you that. So, the success of Madrid this season is very much dependent on Jude Bellingham's success as a player on the pitch. Case in point is their second round of 16 match against RB Leipzig. Jude Bellingham was knocked off that game, literally closed off and knocked out. Even though he was very instrumental in the only goal they got in the second leg at the Bernabeu, you saw that when Jude Bellingham thrived, Real Madrid thrived. Now, I'm not saying he can be stopped for 90 minutes. I don't think any team has been able to do that. But because of the sheer brilliance of the Manchester City team and how well they can create chances from thin air when they want to, it means that Madrid would have to be perfect, if not near perfect, to scale through this one. It's possible for them to do because there's a Vinicius and there's a Bellingham, but you can almost bet your money that on a good day, on a normal day, Manchester City will create more chances than Real Madrid. So my money is on Man City to go through the semi-finals against Real Madrid.